Whether you are applying for a scholarship or you're coming for a master's degree as a self-funded student, you will at one point be required to make several or at least one application for a master's program. Today we are hosting Ayanda Kunene. She is a master's student at the University of Edinburgh and a pharmacist by profession. She holds a bachelor's from the University of Witwatersrand, South Africa, and she's also a Mandela Washington Fellow for the 2022 cohort at the University of Minnesota. Ayanda has demonstrated over time that she has a good understanding of admission to the international universities, given her experience in mentoring students who are applying for scholarships. So, Ayanda, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar, for having me.
What do you look for when you're applying for a university outside your country?
So, one of the things that I looked for when looking for a university outside of my country was the curriculum of the program that I was looking forward to. So I was looking for like an integrated program where there's both not just like theoretical, but also like an almost practical part of it. So in my university, the practical part came where we had guest lecturers from different policy spaces because I'm doing a course in global health policy. So we had an opportunity to have guest lecturers who are actually practicing in those areas to give us insights on like real life experiences and what happens on the ground, outside of what we learn from like literature. So that was quite important for me that it has like an integrated approach and it's not just like theoretical. And also, what was important for me as an international student was a university that's got a supportive structure. So what I also checked for was like what kind of like supportive resources are there for international students? Because I mean, you may be aware we may have like different challenges. So what opportunities are there for students who don't have like a background in the education in the UK education system? And also like the community, that was something that I found very important, like the community of international or like African students. That was also something that I looked for. Yeah.
You applied to several universities. I understand that given that you are also a Chevening scholar.
Yes.
Can you remember the number of universities you applied to?
I'd say about like 6 or 7. I was quite obsessive. I was quite obsessive because I also didn't want to risk, finding myself in a position where I do get the scholarship, but I don't have like an unconditional offer. So I would say if you give yourself ample time to apply, um, it gives you that opportunity to limit the risk. Because I've heard of scholars who actually like got the funding, but they didn't have an unconditional offer, which is quite unfortunate.
Yeah, so they have to forego their scholarship.
Unfortunately.
No,
So
that's
if you
sad.
give yourself ample time and apply, it also gives you time to communicate with the institutions and to gather whatever documents they may require from you. So I'd say, yeah, if you can, and I mean some universities also don't require an application fee. So I also looked for those kind of institutions as well.
So we are about to just start breaking down the application process in details, but maybe it would be nice for us to know. Maybe this is my first time hearing about applying for a master's program outside my country.
Yes.
Where do you, as an individual, find information about universities?
So what I did a lot of research from Google. What I also did was I approached people who were like current scholars before I applied. So they also served as a good resource of like a good network. They also pointed me out to people who have done similar courses or who have similar interests. And I reached out to people and, I asked questions. So this is what I'd like to study. Which facility institution do you think would be the best for this? But also doing your own research as well, like Googling like the university rankings, if that's something that you're looking for. But also Googling the course that you're looking at, um, checking what does it entail. Maybe if you see a certain lecturer or professor that does work that you're interested in, taking a chance, send them an email, reach out, ask questions. That was, yeah, how I
So
approach.
you are a master's student.
Yes,
Are you a taught master's student or a research master's student?
I'm a taught master's student.
What's the difference?
So a taught master's student is you have two parts, right? So the first 6 to 7 months or so, you have prescribed courses. So when you apply, you would have been given like options of courses that you would like to take, and all have like a, what do you call this? So they have credits. So you would have been given, so in my case, I did like 6 or 7 courses. So some were like 20 credit courses, 10 credit courses. And then at the end of your courses, then you undertake a dissertation. So which is a research based part of your master's. So compared to a research master's, my understanding is, yeah, it's broken down into two parts basically. So you have the teaching part where you actually go into class and you're taught, and in my case, you write essays, and then eventually you get to the part where you have to submit a dissertation for research.
I may want to understand, will it impact me if, for example, I want to do a PhD? Will it impact me if I'm on a taught master student based on your experience, or at
Based
least
on
from the people you know?
Yes, based on my experience, it shouldn't. So especially if you maintain like a good academic record. So especially if the courses that you selected as well align with the PhD that you'd like to go into. So my understanding is it shouldn't, if you just like perform well.
I think that makes sense. I was on a taught master student
Yes.
and doing my PhD, so I needed that to come out very clearly, and I think you've helped the listeners and people who are watching us understand that actually the two masters give you two different approaches and two types of things.
Mm,
But if we are talking about progression to maybe a PhD or even going to career,
mm.
both can serve you. So it's up to you now to think carefully on which masters you want.
Yes.
But before we get to a point where we start discussing the details of what each and every masters has, it is good now we look into what do we need to apply for a master's degree.
Okay. So for one to apply for a master's degree, you would need to have a bachelor's degree. So you would have completed that, and you would need to submit your academic transcript, to show that, these are the courses you've done and you have completed your bachelor's degree. And you would also need, if you're coming from like a non-English speaking country, to demonstrate proficiency in English language. So you would need to either take like an IELTS test or TOEFL test, that sort of thing. But if you can prove that your institution was taught in English, then you can bypass that. You can just like send that evidence. So yes, that's what you need. But mostly you should have like completed your undergrad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's begin from of course completion of your program is more or less obvious. Most people can understand what completion means.
Mm.
The second part you said, what was the second requirement?
English proficiency.
So we are talking about various types of English proficiency tests. And you mentioned you can either do those tests or demonstrate that your university taught you
Yes.
in English, right? So let's begin with the easier part. How do you demonstrate that your university taught in English?
You could get a letter from the university that actually confirms that the university does teach in English. So in my case, while I came from a university that did teach in English, the time frame between when I completed my undergrad and when I was trying to get into my master's program, I was required to take the English test. But I think I stand corrected. But if it's like within 2 to 3 years of you completing your undergrad, then you can demonstrate, like send a letter that proves that you have proficiency
So I can go to my university and tell them to provide a letter as long as I am within a certain specific time frame.
for some institutions. Yes.
Yes, people have to confirm with their institution first. And how do you confirm? Just go to the university, get an email, and write to admissions. They will give you feedback.
Yes.
Now, how about the English proficiency tests?
Yes.
You did one. We are not endorsing any of those tests, but your university will give you a list of tests that you can take. So, as an individual, which one did you take?
So I took the IELTS, the ELTS, yes, with the British Council. But I also later realized that most universities in the UK actually have tests that they provide, which could be less expensive or even sometimes free. Because some of the one of the challenge that I came across was the price of the English proficiency test. So it's worth approaching your university and finding out if they do have one in house that you could take.
How long did it take you to get to first prepare? Although this is very subjective, people have
Yes,
different abilities. But
yes.
how long did it generally take you to prepare and sit the test and get your results?
So my advice would be, because if you leave it for the last minute, you risk not getting a slot, because at that time everyone wants to write that test. So I gave myself like 2 months, because also I was working at the same time, so I needed to give myself enough time. So I booked a slot, and to be honest, my results came back within like 2 to 3 days, but they normally say like a week to 2 weeks or so. So you don't want to risk that, and miss the dates that you need to submit it to your institution. So again, give yourself enough time.
What is a personal statement?
A personal statement is basically a statement that describes you, who you are as a person, your academic, professional aspirations, your achievements, also quite importantly, what you hope to gain from the course that you plan to undertake. So it's basically a holistic description of who you are, what you've done, what you plan to do, what impact you'd like to make, what you want to see, why you think this is important for you to undertake. And it's basically, I'd say, like an interview, but on paper, like in an essay form.
So, did you submit any personal statements during your application?
Yes, I did.
Are they the same with the ones you submitted for your scholarship, or they're different?
They are different in the sense that my scholarship one had like a word limit, but it's pretty much, I mean, I imagine what you want to do in your course is what you would have told the people that you have from your scholarship. So it's pretty much the same. You're describing yourself, your professional aspirations, what you plan to do, why you want to be granted an opportunity to take the course. So it's pretty much the same, I'd say.
I'm asking these questions because you are in the University of Edinburgh, and for the sake of the listeners, Edinburgh is the top university in Scotland, and it's one of the top universities in the UK and globally. So getting in there, at least it means you can get into most of the universities in the UK. I stand corrected, but I believe that is right.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Now, it makes me curious because I also came in through applying to most of these universities, and different universities were requesting different things. I don't know if in your experience you were required to submit a curriculum vitae, or for that matter, it's called a CV.
Yes. Yes. So I was also required to submit a CV to demonstrate like the professional work that I've done, which was, I think, it also needed to demonstrate how it aligns with the course that I would like to undertake. So yes, yeah, that's one of the things that I actually forgot to mention. Yes.
Just very briefly, I know you might not be having that whole structure of a CV right now in front of you, but
Yes.
what important parts do you consider should be in a CV, or what should not be in the CV?
So I'd say the important parts in your CV is to demonstrate the work that you've done. So a lot of questions, because the scholarship Chevening, the scholarship that I'm on requires you to have like a certain amount of professional work that you've done. So a lot of people who are not in like formal employment thought that it's not a good thing. But if you can demonstrate that you have worked, even though it wasn't like formal, like volunteering is does count as work. So what's important for your CV to showcase is the work that you've done, your achievements, because there are a lot of people who are applying for that place. So you need to demonstrate why you are the right candidate, why you should be selected from the thousands of other people who are applying. So that is very important. And your CV also needs to demonstrate like your passion, the stuff that you do outside of work, outside of academia. And it also needs to highlight your strengths as well. Your CV needs to show what you're good at. Yeah.
So I am a fresh graduate. I just left my bachelor's last year. I
Yes.
want to fund my studies, so I'm not looking for a scholarship, right?
Okay.
But I need admission, and I'm sure my CV is just one page. Do you think that's going to be a problem?
I don't think so, because I know of people who've gone straight from undergrad to masters. Um, but I think I stand corrected, but you should like also like display academic excellence in that regard. So I think there are like, conditions where they do take people who come straight from undergrad straight to masters. Yeah.
Okay, so for the sake of our listeners,
Yes.
sometimes when you are coming in, it depends on the path you are taking, and you only need to put facts about you on the CV. Don't stress so much on where to you can find things to fill into your CV, because people come from diverse places. Some people want to finish with studies first before they can go working, and some
Yes.
people want to study, work,
Mm.
study again, work, and like that. So
Yes.
as Ayanda just mentioned, even if it's one page and it has the right information in it, then it's going to be given consideration.
Yes.
So take your time, write down your CV, and you are going to get it in the right hands. And the next part of the application is another very important document. It's called a reference letter. Although I'm aware, actually, because I've made a good number of applications, that sometimes it might not be very necessary, but some institutions, especially if you are going into a master's by research program, you will be required to submit reference letter. So,
Yeah.
according to you, Ayanda, uh, how should this thing be approached? The aspect of reference letters. Who should I be getting these reference letters from, and how soon should I be starting to contact people? And I think this you are the right person to ask this question, because you've been out of university for more than 2-3 years, right?
Yes. Yes.
So it means you may have lost contact with your university lecturers. So
Yes.
how did you go about it?
So how I went about it, because so okay, for me, luckily, just before I came back into university, I had started like sessional lecturing at the university that I graduated from. So I mean, not everyone is gonna have that option. So luckily, I still had that relationship with my university. But if you've been out of university for like a long time, the best place to go for references are the people that you've had professional relationships with, the people that you've worked with, the people that you've worked for. Um, so I would say to give yourself time and to also give them time. As soon as you know that you'll be applying, at least give them a heads up to say, so this is what I'll be doing. May I please ask in the next 2, 3, however long, to request a reference letter. That way, it gives them time, so they're not drafting, last minute um, references. So yeah, so the people that you've worked with, that you've worked for, that's a good basis.
So I can go into my corporate boss and ask them to share with me, like to share their references, right?
Yes.
Some people might find that difficult. Do you have a way you think people should be trying to approach potential referees, and how people should decide if I have three bosses, who is the most ideal person to approach and what information should I give them? At least, also, how should I frame my approach so that they give me the best of the best references?
I like that you raised that because I mean, in the real world, not everyone has got a good relationship with their boss or their supervisor. So you might find yourself in that difficult situation of not knowing whether or not you'll get a good reference. My approach would be if you do find yourself in that kind of situation, find someone within the organization who might be like senior to you as well, with whom you've got a good relationship, and ask them to be honest in the reference. They need to, like, as much as they do speak highly of you, it's okay for them to also identify areas of growth. So I think that would show that the reference is authentic. It's not just singing your praises, but it just showed that this would be a great opportunity for you because you're someone who's willing to learn and you're not this perfect human being. So that would be my take. Find someone else that you have like a good relationship with, and like get an authentic reference.
Yeah, and to add on what she just said, there are like standards for a good reference. Generally, Generally, if it works, it should come with a company letterhead or at least be sent from an institutional domain. So an institutional domain simply means if you're working for a company called the Management Diary, so it should be an email from the Management Diary company. So I think you can relate that to your either university or such. If that is possible, it would be the best way for you to get a reference because there is that aspect of authenticity, and that is the best way to know that whatever we are getting is authentic. An official letterhead, maybe a stamp if it's very necessary, but if there is a letterhead, the stamp is not very necessary. And then another thing is the official email. But then people will get to ask, I'm making applications to more than 2, 3 universities. Should I be writing back to these referees every other day asking for references?
That's a tricky one. But I think how you need to maneuver that is like within the requirements of the university, because you don't want to like copy and paste stuff and do risky stuff. So if you can maybe speak to them, they could, if it's possible, they could you could give them the list of institutions that you're applying to, and then they prepare for everything, so it boils down to giving them enough time. Because another thing, you don't want to be giving a reference to the University of Edinburgh that says, would like Ayanda to be admitted at the University of Bristol, so you really need to give people enough time and maybe like give them the institutions that you're applying to, and make sure that whatever letter that you're sending speaks to that institution, so it doesn't look, like you're not well prepared.
Yeah, did you ever have to pay application fees?
No, I didn't, but I'm aware that there are some universities that do require an application fee. Yeah,
So that is one thing that somebody should be aware of.
yes.
How did you,
Yeah.
how did you know?
So I went to the university website, and I checked the application process, and I looked for if there's any mention of an application fee, and if I could afford that. I mean, if you really, really want to get into an institution, and you can afford to pay, you've got nothing to lose. Pay the application fee. But I think with me, in light of the fact that I also needed to write the English test, yeah,
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 so actually, some universities don't require you to pay these application fees, especially in the UK. In the US, it's a different case, and that is a topic for another day.
yeah.
But do you think, or at least, have you ever been through an interview process for a master's degree for admission? Were you ever interviewed to be
Yes,
admitted?
yes. So one of the institutions that I applied to, I'm not sure if I can mention it. So I applied to University of Brighton and Sussex Medical School. I think it's like a joint medical school. So they did interview me, and yes.
What happened during the interview?
So during the interview, they basically ask you about yourself. They ask you about the course that you've applied for. One of the key questions that they asked, I remember, was if I've ever been in like a diverse environment where there were like different people from different, parts of the world, different cultures. And because I mean, as an international student, you'll meet people from different places around the world. So they wanted to find out how I would cope if if I had the ability, if I had the skills. Another thing that they asked were what my expectations were from the course, and if yeah, I think that was like the three highlights of the interview. And they basically asked about like my professional history and why it is that I wanted to undertake the masters that I wanted to undertake.
So some universities interviewed you, but others did not interview you.
Yes,
So it is something that varies.
yes.
How was your experience on the interview itself?
I think the interview itself was, because of how it was set up, it was a conversation. And most of the questions are based on you and your experiences and stuff that you would have done. So I think I'd given myself like 2 hours, or like even before that, to like prepare for the interview, read about like what university interview structures are like, what questions I can look forward to. So I think if you prepare, it should go, smoothly. It should be like conversational, and it's not I mean, most interviews for most people are nerve-wracking
Yeah,
initially.
sure.
Yeah.
It can be a nightmare sometimes.
Yes, it can be. So I think, I mean, well, understanding that, it helps that you prepare and you do your research on the institution that you're applying to as well. Yeah,
You need to know where you're going, what you're going to do, and your
why?
intentions on that
Yes.
program.
Because they want to know that, you're not just applying because you want to fill out, as many applications as you can. Like, they need to understand that, are you going to benefit from the program? What is it that you're looking for? And do you think you'll find it from the institution? Yeah.
So that brings us now to more or less the second last bit on the admission process.
Yes.
I understand you submitted your documents, your academic documents. So when we say academic documents, what do we mean?
So when you speak about academic documents, what I submitted was my university transcript from my previous degree, uh, my my degree, like my certificate, and also any other like certificates that you might have accomplished throughout the years. So those are the certificates that you can upload.
So you need your degree
Yes,
itself,
yes,
then you need the transcript that provide the breakdown.
yes,
And for this matter, they should be in a specific language, and I will get to talk about that later in a few
mhm,
seconds.
mhm,
But at least they should be if they are specified in a certain language, right?
yes,
Then any other professional training you can also complement. So
yes,
if you have done a professional qualification in the pharmaceutical industry,
yes,
do you also get to put that in there as part of your
yes.
qualifications?
Yes, you can also, and any other achievements, like in my case, luckily I just completed the Mandela Washington Fellowship. So I also included that, and my certificate on public management that I got from the University of Minnesota. So those certificates, they help boost your application. They help, make you stand out from the other, applicants. So I would say whatever achievements that you have, include them.
Yeah, put them there. So
Yes.
I have had an experience on the application process, and this is something I may need to clarify for applicants. There's something we call notary, and sometimes you are using a translated version, especially now if you went to a university, let's say in Japan, where they teach in Japanese, you may need to translate it. So you may need a notarized document. A notary is simply a person who is in a capacity to, to attest that this is a truthful information. So this person can either be a lawyer or a religious leader or somebody who has a reputation in the industry. Speaking of a qualified accountant, speaking of a CEO of a known company, so that is very complicated. But you can look at advocates of the High Court. That is a general one. It's accepted in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Another thing, some portals will only give you an option for uploading one document. So you need to be careful with that. So don't just upload a certificate alone because your application may be delayed. Append these documents into one before you upload them. So if some university says, put your academic documents here, but then there's only one place you can upload those documents, you need to append. Appending simply means attach one document after the other. So this is your degree, this is your transcript, this is your transcript 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you are uploading, remember to name these documents properly. So say transcript 1, transcript year 2, degree certificate. It would be easier for people on the other side to get to work on your documents. So those are very, very basic things that you should know as an individual. And they do vary from one portal to another, but I felt it is necessary to look into that. So
Yeah.
I think we have provided a lot of information about the application process. And how long did it take you to get your feedback on average? Because this process is different per university.
Yeah. I would say it also depends on when you apply. I'd say it took about like a month or more because there was that back and forth communication of, okay, I was taught in English, do I still need to? And I still waited for like a week or so for them to reply. So I'd say a month or two. Yeah. And then sorry, so I also got a conditional offer, which was conditional on me taking the English test. So upon getting that conditional offer, I had to, do the test and then send them back the results of the test, and then only then I got the unconditional offer.
Yeah, now that you actually brought that up, and I don't know how I was about to forget, what is the difference between a conditional and an unconditional offer?
So a conditional offer simply means that you have a chance of you have been admitted into the program, but you need to fulfill certain conditions. So there would be different conditions in my most of the time, as was in my case as well. I needed to prove my English proficiency. So once you can prove that you're proficient in English by taking the test, then it changes from a conditional. They remove the conditions because you fulfilled the conditions, and then you now have an unconditional offer, meaning that you've been accepted into the program.
So before I get the unconditional offer, I just have an half baked bread.
Yes, it's yeah, yeah. It's not guaranteed because you need to fulfill those conditions.
All right. So in case you're joining us, this is the Management Diary, and tonight we are hosting Ayanda Kunene. Ayanda is a pharmacist by profession, trained at the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. She's currently a master's student at the University of Edinburgh. She's a Chevening scholar, a Mastercard Foundation Fellow, and she devotes a lot of time trying to mentor scholarship applicants. So we are discussing about the master's application process in the UK, and we are now about to get into the application process for the visa. So once you get your unconditional offer, there is a document that is usually provided. What do we call it? The confirmation of acceptance, CAS,
Letter,
right?
CAS. Yeah.
So do you remember receiving such a document?
Yes, and I remember that it was quite important for my visa application because it's got a number that is required. Yes, so that is the confirmation of admission. Yes, I remember receiving it.
Yeah, so generally, could you please tell us how the visa application process went? And we are keeping in mind that Ayanda is a Chevening scholar, and this application process might have very slight differences based on whether you're funding yourself or you're being funded. The difference is only, at least in my understanding, it's only where you get to make some payments
Yes.
about your medical surcharge and your visa application, which actually I will get to mention as we go along. So, how was your visa application process?
So my visa application process, the initial part was like filling out the application form online from like your home from your home visa center. So you fill out the application, and then it will basically tell you the documents that you need to upload. Most importantly, please upload all the documents before you go for your interview. Because if you have uploaded maybe 3 or 4 required documents and you get to your visa interview date and say you haven't uploaded, say maybe your TB test for whatever reason, um, they will charge you. So make sure that you familiarize yourself with whatever documents are required. Well, in my case, let me not say they will. In my home country, for them to do it when you get there, there was a charge. So if you can upload all the documents that are required for your test.
Did you just say a TB test?
Yes.
What's that?
So in some countries, South Africa being one of them, if you apply for a visa to come to your UK, you are required to take a health test. So to test for tuberculosis, yeah, which is a lung disease. So you need to go do that test, and then you need to upload the results that either state whether or not you've got TB.
So, do you choose where to go? Do you get tested at the embassy, or where do you get tested?
Yeah. In our case, they gave us like 2 facilities that are recognized. So you can't just like choose a random one and maybe go to your local clinic. No, you need to go to the ones that they recommend, uh, like a travel clinics, so to say. Yeah.
That makes sense. I think that is well clarified. So, don't go to your local clinic and then come with TB results. Those won't work.
Yeah, take them. Yes.
All right. So you have your TB test. You then you filled all this information onto the portal, right? Then what happened?
So on the day, you basically go for your biometrics. So that's where you go for like your fingerprints, your picture, and then you will be told that in a few days or weeks, the decision on your visa application uh, will be sent out. So you also leave your passport. So if your visa has been approved, then you'll come collect your passport at a later stage once it's been approved.
So did you just say visa passport collection?
Yes.
Do you mean you leave your passport with these guys?
Yes.
How was the visa interview? Like, what did you
Uh,
go do there?
so mine was very quick. So they basically asked questions like, uh, why are you applying for a visa? Where are you planning to go? How long? And if yeah, that was pretty much. It was quite simple. Yeah.
So that includes taking your biometrics, right?
Yes. Yes.
Then you leave your passport with them.
Yes.
Then once the passport comes back, it comes back with your visa, right?
So, yeah.
Then what happened next? Or we are done there?
Yeah, so now you've got your visa. So it's almost certain because I mean, for your student visa, you would have included your university acceptance. So now you're almost complete because now you've got your visa, which is like one of the most important things for you to come to the UK. You can't come to the UK without the visa technically. So once that's sorted, and once you're sure that you have your unconditional offer from your university, then you can start planning to, commence your studies.
So is the visa going to be like my identity card in the UK?
Not really, but it's just evidence that you're in the country legally. So it's just so if you're going to be traveling within the UK, I would say it's advisable to take your passport in case. It's not always that they'll ask you to show, you know, but you don't want to get to a place and they actually ask you to show your passport and you don't have it. So another card that we get is a BRP. Um, so it's basically almost like an identity document that shows that you are in the country legally, and it also shows the duration that you're in the country legally for. So you could also use that when you're traveling.
The biometric residence permit, that is the
That is
BRP.
BRP. Yes, thank you.
Okay, okay. I think whoever is listening has gotten as much information as one would need to successfully get it going as far as the admission process is concerned and the visa application process is concerned. I don't know if you are aware of this, but do you know what happens after your master's with your visa?
Um, so when I checked mine, so if your master's is a 12-month program, there's like 3 to 4 months extra that you can still stay in the country if you choose to. Because, I mean, like a lot of institutions have their graduations shortly afterwards. So I'm guessing it's for you to be in the country and attend your graduation before you move back home. So you still have that allowance. It doesn't mean that if your course ends in September, then your visa automatically means that you must leave. So you've got that leeway of a couple of months. Yeah.
It is one thing that people may want to know, especially sometimes you might maybe fail a module and get to resit.
Yes.
Sometimes you may want to attend your graduation after the program. So whatever she just mentioned is what you need to know about the visa, and it has its limits. You need to know all these facts.
Yes.
So if you are here for any information about the admission process, I think this is where you get to exit. But if you want to know more about the University of Edinburgh, maybe Ayanda is going to tell us a little bit about the University of Edinburgh and how everything is in the city. How are you finding it, by the way?
I've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed my time at the University of Edinburgh. Besides the like, it's quite a beautiful, beautiful city. I'd say that my program and the staff in my program are quite supportive. I would say there's a lot of, so you also get a student advisor. So that's your go-to person for anything academic. If you have like challenges, if you've got questions, if you need certain information. So you've got someone that's assigned to you that will help you navigate your university life. So I think that's one of the things that I enjoyed. And I'd say my course, we came from like different countries, like from, China, Canada, India, Uganda, Ghana, Kenya, you know. So that was quite nice. The diversity was the thing that I've enjoyed about the student community at the University of Edinburgh. It's quite diverse. We've got universities from all parts of the world. And yeah, the teaching staff are quite supportive, and the environment also, you've got like lots of resources, you've got libraries, I mean, you've got like internet access, you've got um extra lessons, if you need help with writing, because a lot of us don't come from backgrounds where you wrote essays. So there's a lot of support when it comes to that. You get like opportunities for you to like write essays and get like one-on-one feedback, and you get people who guide you on the writing process. So I'd say the university, I totally recommend the University of Edinburgh. It's quite supportive and yeah,
So it's in the heart of the city.
yes, yes. And they have beautiful castles as well. Yes,
It would be a nice experience, especially for people who are now trying to come to Edinburgh, either
yes,
self-funded students or through a scholarship. So
yes,
you have a review here from
yes.
Ayanda, and that is what you should expect from Edinburgh and more. Before I let you go, what would be your parting shot?
Uh, I would say enjoy your time. Um, get to know people, learn, build relationships with the staff, your supervisors, people in your institutions, and yeah, enjoy it and learn as much as you can. It's quite a fascinating opportunity, and yeah,
If I want to find you on socials,
yes.
how can I connect with you?
So on LinkedIn, I am Ayanda Kunene, and I'm also on Instagram as simply underscore Yanda. So that's simply underscore YANDA. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not on Facebook and I'm not very active on Twitter, but yeah.
Okay, we will leave links to her profile to the description of this video. So just go down there and check it. You'll find all the links to her socials, whichever you prefer, either LinkedIn or Instagram. Just go there and look out for Ayanda Kunene.
Thank you. Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
So that was Ayanda Kunene, and this is the Management Diary. See you again in the next episode. Bye bye.